Hi, and welcome to The Working Songwriter, the show where today's best songwriters come to talk shop. I'm your host, Joe Pug. Each episode here, we host a distinguished guest, and we ask them to go deep on their inspiration, on their process, on the general ups and downs of making a life in music. So, whether you're a grizzled veteran trying to sell a backstage laminate for the 1985 Motley Crue tour on eBay, or else a scrappy upstart printing up laminates for a tour of small clubs that don't even have green rooms, this is your show. Because ultimately, it is what every writer seeks most, an ironclad excuse to put off actually writing. Hey everybody, it's the third Friday of February 2021, and I thank you for joining us. This week's show is brought to you by Bandzoogle. Built by musicians and for musicians, Bandzoogle is an all-in-one platform to build a beautiful website for your music. I'm old enough to remember when you had to pay somebody called a web developer to get a website made, and it would always be some guy named Rembert who drove an Acura with a window decal of a stick figure humping the word "it," and who was always trying to sell you pills that he said were Adderall, but that you suspected were just Excedrin. And old Rembert would try to charge you about $1,000 for a website that would be obsolete in 6 months. But it's the future now, you guys. That's not how it works anymore. We're allowed to have nice things now. One of those nice things is Bandzoogle. Bandzoogle powers the websites of tens of thousands of musicians around the world, from weekend warriors to Grammy winners. All the features you need for a professional website are already built in. Hosting and a custom domain name, dozens of fully customizable design templates, tools to sell your music and merch commission-free, newsletter integrations, social media integrations. It's a wonderful product. The Working Songwriter podcast listeners can go to bandzoogle.com to try it for free for 30 days. Use the promo code TWS to get 15% off the first year of any subscription. If you'd like to hear some of my music live in the coming weeks, every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, I'm over on my YouTube channel for Sunday Songs. That's a live stream. I'm live every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. I'm playing tunes. I'm taking questions in the live chat. I'm taking requests in the live chat. It's a really interactive experience. I dare to say we're building something of a little community over there because a lot of the viewers are interacting with me in the chat and also interacting with one another. And many of the viewers over there are listeners of this podcast. So come on over and be a part of it. Every Sunday night, 9 p.m. Eastern on YouTube. Head to YouTube, search for Joe Pug, and you'll be able to find my channel and sign up. Finally, if you enjoy this podcast, if you'd like to help it remain a viable endeavor for me, here's a couple things that you could do to help. First, you could become a supporter of the show over at Patreon. Patreon is a platform that allows you to directly support creative endeavors that you find meaningful. You just head to their site, Patreon. You search for The Working Songwriter, or you search for my name, and then you sign up to kick in a few bucks every month for the show. Think of it as a voluntary subscription, a subscription that you certainly don't have to make, but that you choose to make because you won't miss a few bucks at the end of the month. If just 1% of our listenership would kick in the price of a cup of coffee every month, it would make a huge difference for me. So thanks to everybody who's already done that. If you're not in a place where you can chip in that way, I totally get it. There's still a couple ways that you could help the show. First, you could leave us a rating in the iTunes store, or second, you could tell a friend about the show. You could help us spread the word. The simple math on those two things is that they will help me much more than they will be a pain in the ass for you. That's it. That's all the housekeeping I have here. I'll end all my harassment there. It was great getting to catch up with Langhorne again, and I hope you guys enjoy this conversation. Our guest this week hails from Pennsylvania and now makes his home in Nashville, Tennessee. Over the last decade and a half, Langhorne Slim has established himself as one of the most inventive songwriters in modern folk music, and also as a must-see live performer. He's recorded for V2, Ramsar Records, and Dual Tone Records. He's toured with the Avett Brothers, Grace Potter, the Lumineers, the Violent Femmes, Josh Ritter, the Drive-By Truckers, and many others. He's appeared on The Late Show with David Letterman and Conan O'Brien's Late Night Show. Conan is such a huge fan of his that he's actually sat in with Langhorne's band at the Troubadour in LA. The New Yorker has said that he possesses Leadbelly's gift for storytelling and Dylan's ability to captivate crowds. Rolling Stone once praised his album The Way We Move as damn near perfect. And NPR has said of his latest album, Strawberry Mansion, that he has found peace amidst chaos. Slim has been a guest on our program before. I'm a big fan of his, and I just wanted to hear about this latest album and what he's been up to recently, so I gave him a buzz, and he was kind enough to pick up and fill me in on his journey since the last time we talked. Mr. Langhorne Slim, thanks for coming back on to the Working Songwriter Podcast. I guess it's been a hell of a year for everybody, but reading about the process for your new album, sounds like it's been a hell of a couple years for you. Why don't you let our listeners know what the last couple years have been like for you and leading into this new album of yours, Strawberry Mansion?
Well, every year is a hell of a year when you're living, right?
Yeah, I can co-sign that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. There's when you look back on things in retrospect, in context of making making a thing, and yeah, I mean, all of the years are a lot of different things, including this last year with all of what we're all going through. For me personally, it's not, none of my 40 years are all terrible or are all great. I mean, there are, for me, on just like a very, I guess, personal level, there are some years that I seem to find myself more, and others that I seem to lose myself more. And I suppose if I'm going to believe like a bumper sticker I've seen, or a shirt sold at a gift shop on the Ocean City Boardwalk or something, it takes all of those years and all of those things to get to where we're at. And I do like to believe that kind of a notion. Perhaps that's my need for self-preservation, or to stay optimistic. But yeah, I mean, in the realm of creativity, in the realm of coming closer to finding a healthy way to dance through, a graceful way, a healthy, a strong way to dance through the ups and downs and lefts and rights of this existence that we're all trying to roll with. The last 2 or 3 years have come with their challenges for me, and I suppose the biggest one, the intoxicated elephant in the room, is that I had gotten sober about 7.5 years ago, and I had gotten unsober a few years ago, when I had just some things in my life that I was, again, it's all in retrospect, and when you're living it in the moment, you can recognize certain things. So I just hope I can speak to these things in a genuine and honest way to the best of my ability. And what I can recognize now is that, and I recognized it at the time in ways, was that for me, somebody who was essentially dependent on booze and drugs, from the first time I drank like a 6-pack of Yingling in Becky Horowitz's parents' basement, and I was like, yo, this shit is my cure, because all of those feelings of anxiousness of irritability, of not feeling like I fit into a certain structure of a public school or even of a private school, which I wound up going to after the public school asked me to leave. All those feelings that so many people can relate to, it's nothing unique to me. Booze, eased that discomfort. And I knew right away as a teenager that it was going to be a long road, that I had found something that was going to help me feel sane in a crazy world. But I also knew in that moment that it was the same thing that was going to make me feel like I was staying sane was also the thing that would most likely drive me totally mad. And
Right.
I had that moment of clarity, even as a young boy in the basement of Becky Horowitz. And I don't think she would mind. She's still a dear friend and was my high school sweetheart, love her to death. And so it was a long road of, as it is for many of drinking and drugging and the life that we live. It's like,
Yes.
you don't need to be a drunk or a drug connoisseur to live the life that we live, but it is there if you want it, as everybody knows. But it's there if you want it, no matter where you are. People are like, yo, you get sober in Nashville, you got sober, you went to New Orleans and you're sober. It's like, yeah, I mean, drugs and alcohol, fire is everywhere if you're looking to play with it. And so, that's just the way it is. Well, of course, I'm always going to forget where I start when I start rambling, but I guess where we're getting to is, Joe, so much spam comes onto this phone. I don't know what they want or what they're trying to scam. I don't even understand the scams that they're running.
You're all good. You're all good, brother.
Yeah, that's what's really testing my patience lately. I get like 10 of these calls and I don't even know. I pick up every once in a while. I don't know what the fuck what they're trying to get from us. But hey, I guess what I'm trying to say is that I guess a few years ago I had managed to stay sober for a little while, and I had done that without really any kind of support, not really in any kind of community of sober people or anything. I was sort of isolated in it without really realizing that was my approach. I was just like, oh, I'm fucking sober and I'm staying sober.
Yeah.
And then life did some things, as life does, which was like a relationship that was really tough. Situations with my perception at the time of myself and my career, basically looking for my self-worth in outside people and things, such as on this tour, these venues have to be full. I mean, just for instance, I don't even think
Sure.
that was it. It was basically like thinking, and maybe we talked about this the last time, I don't remember. It was a lot of me feeling like, well, I'm sober now, and amazing things happen very quickly for me in just stopping drugs and alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't solve the whole thing. It doesn't grow the baby that lives within us all unless you start growing that baby. So it was a big step, but or an adolescent or however old, if you believe in these inner children, which I happen to.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like these things happen. I had met somebody and I had like decided this was a time in my life, to really like have a partner, and see things the same way. Basically, it's a lot of like control and ego shit that I was confronting,
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of came undone. I find when you're living sheerly for expectation, that whatever is there down the street, if that's the thing that I've imagined that I want, then I'll be the man that I want to be. Then I'll be happy. Then I'll be at peace. Well, it doesn't work that way. I've been extremely lucky in my life, as you have in yours, I think, if you don't mind me saying, where we get to play music for a living. We get opportunities to travel, to meet people, dream kind of things. And they are beautiful gifts. But in the end, none of those things, the same as, relationships, selling some record, none of these things really, and most people know it. And I knew that philosophically. I could speak about it, the concept, since I'm a little kid, but it hadn't fully trickled down into my soul or spirit, and I would still get super spun out. And so, yeah, the combination of like relationship, it wasn't the first time, but just like being a touring musician, I just wasn't feeling it in the way that I felt like I needed to feel it, and I was still grinding.
Yes.
And, I was going after things thinking that I was being passionate and that it would, I think, man, maybe I'm lying, but if I am, it's not on purpose. I think I thought I was being, well, I'm just not, it's just my head is fucked up. It's just my heart is fucked up. But if I continue to just be super passionate and just, if I keep writing, if I keep trying to make this relationship work, and, but it's just beating your head against the wall, hoping you're going to create a window for a breeze to fucking roll through. And instead you just have a battered, bloody head. And that's what wound up happening. Like I didn't have the ability at that time to step away or to take a step to the left or the right in as significant of a way as I needed to. And I wound up going to a doctor to speak about anxiety and depression and stuff, but mainly for me, just this sort of very kind of an anxiety that I've had as far back as I can remember, where it just kind of manifests into a physical thing, and it just takes over. I think it's a lot of maybe where the addiction stuff comes from, for me, of just like thought goes to feeling very quickly, and then that feeling is sort of taken over. And, I'm finally at 40 years old learning some methods to feel a little bit more, to deal with that, and not to feel like I'm dying or everything, whatever, the extreme thoughts and feelings that you feel. So I went to this dude. I don't blame him. I doubt I was totally honest about where I was coming from. He listed some medications that could help me with this anxiety, of course, taken as needed. Mm-hmm. And then for me, it's like I knew I was playing with fire. One thing leads to another, and that was several years of a prescription pill addiction, which also led me to never back to booze. And I only think that that's from some other control issues that I was like, well, I'm not in my own mind. Well, I'm not drinking. And then, of course, with prescription medicine, it could even be like more secretive and more isolated in that addiction, where it wasn't something I was doing socially. I was doing it, got that shit in my pocket.
Right.
But it got out of control for me quickly. And so, yeah, when we're talking about, well, the last few years seems like, from what you were reading, that it was tough. I mean, in that case, yeah, it was very tough. And took just, a little over a year ago for me to come back to Nashville and try to get healthy and seek other ways to get sober and to remain sober. And And for me, that's just one part of it. It's like I want to live. I need to live without drugs or alcohol. I've proven that. There's no more like whether I do or not, we'll see. But all the evidence for me shows me that I cannot. I'm one of these motherfuckers. I cannot do a little bit, and never could, never once could do a little bit. Nor did I understand those people that just do a little bit, which seems crazy. But yeah, for me, it's now about remaining sober from drugs and alcohol, but just as much, if not even more, to start to take those bumper sticker slogans off the back of the Priuses or the Ocean City Boardwalk gift shops, and like understand them in my heart, that it's like, what I'm looking for is within. And though that might sound corny in the words, in the end, that's just the truth, because I've tried to find it everywhere else, and it works occasionally, but it's fleeting, and now I'm trying to what am I trying to do, Joe? I guess I'm trying to.
Well, you said there that it works, and I guess what you're talking about there is when you start to put that self-worth, especially into career stuff with what we do with music. And I'd actually push back on that, because for me, I know exactly what you're talking about, and I think it really is a double-edged sword, because when things aren't going great, you obviously have a reason to be furious and hate yourself. But when things are going great, at least in my own personal experience, I can't enjoy it. All I think about is when it's going to be taken away from me. So it's pain on both sides whenever I play that game, whether things are going good or whether things are going bad. If I put my whole self-worth in that basket, it's going to be pain on either side of the coin.
Yeah, I mean, when we put our self-worth in a career, in a relation, it's bound to be an emotionally abusive situation. And that's true. I never wanted to, people sometimes would ask me if I read the reviews, and for a time I wasn't reading any reviews. Now I'll read some reviews. And I would say, well, I don't want to feel, I'm a sensitive boy, and I don't want to feel bad about myself because some dude says that I ain't got the goods, and I don't want to feel so great about myself because somebody says that I'm so great. Mm-hmm. As the great Daniel Johnston said, the meanest things that were ever said about me, I said about myself. And I think we could all relate to that. You don't have to be a songwriter.
Yeah.
And it's, for me, it's trying to see where some of those voices come from. See why I am so for as far back as I can remember, I'm very, my emotional makeup or something is very extreme. It seems very high, very low. And I haven't learned so much how to deal with the in-betweens, and in-between, it's the gray zones of everything that startle me. So this year in the pandemic and in everything, and in a world that the noise outside is so incredibly loud, and online it's so incredibly loud, is to try to just sit with a little bit more of that discomfort of stillness, of those, which I still suck at it, but I'm trying. Trying more than I was before. I can see now how I would run at every fucking whim, every feeling of discomfort, to medicate myself in some way, whether it be drugs, alcohol, calling my manager to see what's going on, or getting all spun out because something good is happening, or something that I wish was happening isn't happening. Whatever, it doesn't matter. I would put chaos onto any of it, and I still do it, man. I would put, there had to be some kind of roller coaster to ride. and even now, like I just got back home last night. I was in Pennsylvania to see my mom and my grandma Ruth,
Nice.
and then went to New York for a few days. It was beautiful. Yeah. Saw a couple friends, just got home. And even on the drive home, it's like, and Joe, I'm putting out a record in 2 weeks, which is very exciting and a great gift for me to have happened in this time. But yeah, my mind is still like, what can I get myself into? Like, where is the action? Where is the adventure? And it doesn't even like attach for me of like, man, I wish I was on the road touring. Like for some reason, maybe just because I know that's not on the table. It's like, where else can I buy a ticket for the ride? And again, I understand it sounds corny. Like I need to remind myself that I'm on the ride. Like the ride is when I'm sitting and like, for the first time in my life, I clipped my cat's nails and tried not to hurt my cat. I bought a little kitty nail clipper. Like that's part of the ride. Maybe that's part of just being like an old dude or something. But I'm like, it's all
Yes.
part of the fucking ride. And it's not just constantly seeking myself down the road somewhere.
I'm really glad that you were able to. It seems almost providential for you that you were able to address this time last year, because I've thought a lot about my friends during the pandemic who are still dealing with addiction issues. I think it's really we're seeing addiction deaths really skyrocket this year, and even I think about a guy like a friend of mine, although it was a complicated friendship. A friend of mine, Justin Towns Earl, passed away this year.
Yeah.
And I think about it a lot. I'm like, man, if the pandemic would have happened and he could have continued to work, would he still be here? If he had gotten sober before the pandemic, would he still be here? I mean, I'm just so glad that you got that treatment when you did, man. It's just that's a beautiful thing.
Thanks, Joe. And it's seemingly incredible timing, and in the same breath, I think about it all the time. I'm surrounded by people in my life now who deal with this stuff, and I think there's been an influx of people who are desperately, because that's seemingly what it takes is that desperately trying to and getting sober, and there has been far more than I'm aware of, but it's far more than any of us would want, of people who are not making it, and it's brutal. It's brutal. I mean, it's like, as you know, and the listeners I'm sure know, like for alcoholics or drug addicts, one of the first things that is sort of suggested to those of us who are we're trying to live in a sober way is stay connected. Fucking stay connected with people that love you, that you love, and stay connected to fellow addicts and alcoholics and that whole deal. And then we're in a situation that, that isolation is one of the worst things for people. And, of course we're living in a bizarre world where isolation is something that's been forced upon us.
Yeah.
And it's kicking the soul's balls, if you will, of alcoholics and addicts. I always like that one. Of addicts and alcoholics, but for so many people that I'm sure maybe didn't think of themselves as having what I suppose is called mental health issues. I don't know how I feel about that term, but I don't know.
Sure.
Maybe I'm just being a jerk. But for those that might have thought, depression, anxiety, drinking and all that stuff was something that they, could relate to from afar, I think it has hit home for a lot more people. And it's just, as traveling musicians, that we've always known the power of connection and of music, connecting with our audiences and all of that. And now, though it's really challenging in ways, it almost seems like it's more important. Yet for musicians, you don't have that stage to go to, so you have to figure out other ways. Yeah.
This week's episode is brought to you by Nation of Heat Records and my new album, The Diving Sun, to be released on March 19th, 2021. Let's take a listen to the first single, Crescent Bridge. What began as a search for songs for a B-sides album morphed into an obsessive remix and morphed again into a proper album process. This new album features songs from sessions from my album Windfall and from The Flood in Color, and also a handful of songs written and recorded during the COVID quarantine. The result is an album that's unlike any other I've ever produced, but which also stands shoulder to shoulder with any album I've ever released.
Can't admit it drives a dark car, no heart, rebel with a gold card. I'm here waiting on the Crescent Bridge, and she's a true bride, bright side, parliaments and brown eyes. I'm here waiting on the Crescent Bridge.
That's entitled Crescent Bridge from the forthcoming album, The Diving Sun. Go to joepugmusic.com to hear it in its entirety. The last time that I talked to Langhorne, it seemed in some ways that the arc of his personal story had already been written. After a footloose period in his early 20s, he found sobriety, and it suited him well. That's it, right? Case closed. You can ride off into the sunset now. But of course, that isn't how life works. New challenges arise that aren't solved by old solutions. New desires emerge that aren't resisted by past discipline. You have to continually adapt to survive. And there's a wonderful poem by Audre Lorde that speaks to what a wonderful achievement it is just to do that. It's entitled, A Litany for Survival. For those of us who live at the shoreline, standing upon the constant edges of decision, crucial and alone, for those of us who cannot indulge the passing dreams of choice, who love in doorways coming and going in the hours between dawns, looking inward and outward at once before and after, seeking a now that can breed futures like bread in our children's mouths, so their dreams will not reflect the death of ours. For those of us who are imprinted with fear like a faint line in the center of our foreheads, learning to be afraid with our mother's milk, for by this weapon, this illusion of some safety to be found, the heavy-footed hope to silence us. For all of us, this instant and this triumph, we were never meant to survive. And when the sun rises, we are afraid it might not remain. And when the sun sets, we are afraid it might not rise in the morning. When our stomachs are full, we are afraid of indigestion. When our stomachs are empty, we are afraid we may never eat again. When we are loved, we are afraid love will vanish. When we are alone, we are afraid love will never return. And when we speak, we are afraid our words will not be heard nor welcomed. but when we are silent, we are still afraid. So, it is better to speak remembering we were never meant to survive. Talk to me a bit about the writing of this album. It sounds like some of that that anxiety and stuff that you were feeling, it had started at a certain point to bleed over into your writing process, and you were having a hard time even sitting down with the pen and the page. Can you first talk about what that felt like at first, and then go further and talk about how you got past it to or maybe not got past it, but were able to contend with it enough to write this new album?
I mean, this album it just revealed itself to me song by song for the most part. There was no pen to paper, well, in a literal sense, there was no pen to paper hardly for this either. It was just, but anyway, there were still songs, but they didn't write them down. For the last year or more prior to, we'll call it the pandemic days, mm-hmm. I had been out in California working with Malachi, trying to finish this Lost at Last Volume 2 record. And that was sort of in the height of this, relapse with prescription medication. And I couldn't finish the record. I was going out of my mind. I was driving him nuts, anybody else nuts that was around me, I'm sure. And yeah, I mean, for a year or something, I couldn't finish the thing. And then got home, and it was very obvious to me when I got back to Nashville that this issue wasn't going to fix itself, and I needed to let some people in that I was struggling, and that I needed to get myself some help, which I did. And when I got back from receiving some help, we had a tornado that swept through Nashville, and that was fucking terrible. And there was also beauty in that the town and the neighborhoods were really coming together, and people were out on the street and helping each other. And there was this mass of cleanup effort that was going on. And a week and a half later, 2 weeks later, it's COVID pandemic, quarantine time. So that was very, I don't know that Nashville has had a chance to really process or deal with it all at this point, but it was certainly a pretty intense and surreal and wild time. I know for everybody, but certainly here in Nashville, and for whatever reason, I think when it was time to quarantine, I don't know how many months at that point I had been sober at that point, but there was just a forced slowing down, a forced simplification. I couldn't run at every whim, that sort of thing. And then songs just started to, melodies and words were just coming very quickly. I wasn't attempting to write a record, so there were just songs that were coming to me, and I was very pleased that there was any new music that was floating around me and enabling me to put it into song. And so the songs were coming really quick. I think specifically what you might be talking about is this. There is a song on it called Panic Attack, which was a song I wrote in the midst of said panic attack from a suggestion that a therapist had given to me a couple of months earlier when I was talking to her about that I thought I'd probably never write a song again. I was freaking the fuck out. when I'm not being creative, or if I'm not on it all ties in. It's just like, I don't know. I never really learned who I was without being a musician boy,
Right.
without being on the road, without creating a song, without working toward a record, about all this sort of stuff, which is all beautiful stuff, but it's not everything.
Well, we do have a
Mhm.
very performance-based job. I haven't had that with songwriting, but I've had it a lot with live performance before, where I'll get myself spun out before a show of like, you're not going to remember the words. If you don't remember the words, you can't sing the songs. If you can't sing the songs, you can't do the show. Then you don't get paid. If you don't get paid, you can't pay your mortgage. If you can't pay your mortgage, your kids are out on the street. And I'm able to do that in like a 17-second window. I can like put all that together and freak myself out, because it is very performance based. I mean, you do have to be able to play the show, and you do have to be able to write the damn song. And still, none of us know where the damn songs come from, so it can be really scary.
Absolutely. My anxiety with that is it seems to go, if I can't put on the best show that these people have ever seen me put on, then what the fuck am I doing? And a lot of times that anxiety goes to, well, I need to be able to sing my ass off. And then the anxiety that I get from that seems to manifest into losing or thinking that I'm losing my voice. And then, of course, if you don't have your voice, how can you do even if you can do the show, it's like, well, it's just like at 50% in my own mind. And, that's a whole, it's always been fascinating to me, the fear and anxiety, how it manifests into physical, how you can make yourself sick, very literally, through, your own fears, negative thinking, all of that stuff. That's something I was talking to with this therapist who I started to see, whom I miss. She had to leave for maternity leave, and then I got a different therapist, but she's wonderful. But she suggested to me something that I really fucking hated at the time, which was, she's like, well, maybe you're scared that you won't be able to write sober, which was an ironic fear, and it occurred to me she was right. It was an ironic fear, because I had been unsober and medicating myself. And completely numbing out to a point where I had been writing less than I ever had in my entire life. In a year, maybe a song and a half, and I don't even know if I would play them for you. But it occurred to me that she was probably right. And I don't know, I had just felt so far from whatever the source is for so long. I really didn't, I could dress up like myself. I could play my songs, and I might even be able to do them well. I might be able even to pull one, over on you or somebody. But I didn't recognize myself, and it really scared the shit out of me. And even when I got clean again, it was like, okay, so what are songs like? What the fuck's going on?
Right.
And also really trying to address what is this core fear? What is the core anxiety stuff that I deal with, so I can actually try to do something about it. And in regards to creativity, she was like, well, when you're feeling panic attack, whatever you want to call it, when you're feeling that kind of anxiousness manifesting into physical fucking freak out, have you considered going to the guitar? And I was like, yeah, I don't do that, because the guitar isn't my friend when I'm in that zone. I could barely move, and if anything, in my mind, the guitar would be mocking me. Be like, you can't, you don't know what to do with this thing.
Right.
And, maybe come back tomorrow. and she suggested, well, maybe just try to play and do it without any kind of expectation where it will lead you, just as an exercise, just kind of see. And so I had a full-on panic attack one day. I don't know how many weeks or months it was into the quarantine, and a friend was at my house and was trying to help, like, are you okay? What's up? I was like, I don't know. Like, why don't you just lay down on the couch? In the midst of these things, I feel like I need to fight through it. Like, if I do something, and that seems to only make it worse. So the idea of just like laying down, or not being mean to myself about it, or or something, I don't know. It's hard for me to put in words exactly, but
it sounds like moralize it. Not moralize it in a way, just accept it as you would accept any other health problem that was happening.
Yeah, I think it's control or something like that. To just surrender to the feeling and ride it out is challenging for me. And so I attempted to do that. And then I remembered the suggestion that this therapist had given me, and I went to the guitar and then just kind of spat out, which the song "The Panic Attack," my record, is just kind of stream of conscious vomiting words of kind of exactly what I had just gone through. Calling a healthcare professional, wanting to speak to somebody confidentially, being asked to fill out forms of on a scale of 1 to 10, how anxious are you? I'm just like, holy fuck. So it just it flowed very quickly, and the whole process of writing for this record was a non-process, at least it seemed so at the time, of just like, that's not really true. There was a process in that I would make these videos with my dear friend Mike Cracker Farm, found some kind of healthy way to exist with social media at that time, which was for me to write these songs, to make these videos with Mike the day of, so it was still in like the rawest form, not analyze them, not critique them, write them, make the video and post the video, and then go home, and that evening or afternoon, often there would be another melody or some words for me to start working on, and would hardly think of the song that I'd just written until later. And that process wound up leading to, I don't know, 25 or 30 songs or something.
Wow. That's a serious crop right there.
Yeah, I think I was just I was blocking myself so much. I mean, it's just a guess, but I had blocked myself for what I would say a year, but who knows if it was longer than that. Maybe it was longer than that. And then learning how to breathe again and starting to recognize myself again, and feeling more playful, just with which is a strange dichotomy. I understand, because with all of the horror, the shit show that is going on outside, to find some quiet and a little bit more, dare I say, peace within. But life works in mysterious ways, I suppose. But yeah, the songs, they were flowing fast and without any expectation. It kind of felt the most similar to when I had first learned to play guitar. I don't remember judging myself or having an expectation of, maybe I did, I don't know. I mean, I loved Kurt Cobain, and then I loved Bob Dylan, and so there was, and I always had a dream of being a great musician.
Yeah.
So there was probably always that there, but there was just no thought of, this is going to be some kind of thing that I'm going to, that I'm even working toward. It was more, it was more left in like the spirit world, which I think is where creativity kind of lives in, and for me, there's like the mind in the brain, if you will, and the mind of one soul or spirit. And for me, at least, creativity is not often an analytical, intellectual process. It's more of tapping into something. It's probably why I did enjoy drugs and alcohol a lot, trying to quiet my mind and open and loosen my heart, if you will, or that spirit, the spiritual connection or something. And I find a lot of times, people can talk about they know where songs come from or how they wrote stuff, and that's great for them. I mean, maybe that's true. I don't know. I can't relate to that.
Right.
I don't know where it comes from. I'm just grateful when it comes. But there's that connection to whatever that source is, and then when the mind of the brain kind of turns on and becomes analytical or critical, that seems to snuff out that particular flow. I don't know if I'm making sense.
You are. No, you are. And what's really amazing about what you're talking about right there is that listeners can hear what you're talking about. I found with my own work, one thing that I'll do to try to protect myself so that no one can say that I'm stupid or they think that a song is stupid is I can get really into that analytical mind, and I can go back and quote unquote make all the lyrics perfect. You know what I mean? So no one can make fun of me because I figured this out, and I had to really learn how to undo that with the last producer I worked with. He was like, "No, man, you just wrote the song. It sounds great. Leave it there." And the thing is, listeners, they don't like the analytical stuff, man. They don't like things being quote unquote perfect. They like what you're able to tap into, and they don't hear all those little imperfections that you might hear yourself.
And they might hear them and connect to them, at least in that energetic, spiritual way. I mean, we're animals that love to forget that we're animals and control things. And this idea of perfecting things, my gosh, it's interestingly, for so many of us who can relate to what we're talking about, the music that we love the most is the raw, dirty, real deal, where they didn't even have the equipment to quote unquote perfect these things. It's just that's the stuff that seems the closest to the source.
Yeah.
So I guess many have spoken about it before us, and many will after us. But it's the unlearning that forget everything that you learn, pretty much in that way, and just trying to be true to it. Really, what I experienced on a sort of subconscious level, and then when we made the record, we were all in line with that same kind of theme, which was just keep it simple. And I had a notion once the idea came that there was enough songs, maybe we'll make a record. I'm so superstitious that I didn't even want to talk to anybody about that out of fear that it would stop the flow of the songs. Mm-hmm. But once it got closer to a conversation, or the conversation had happened, I was like, well, maybe I should write another verse. Maybe I should put a bridge. I did send the songs to my dear friend, Kenny, who I collaborate with for years. And he sent me back some really great ideas. A couple that I used, many I didn't, not because they weren't great ideas, but I just wanted the songs to be as immediate and, whether somebody likes them or doesn't like them, as kind of true in the moment that I wrote them as I could, to when we hit record and I played them with Matt Davidson and Paul DeFiglia. And this record, more than I can remember, maybe since when I first started making albums, it all fell in line with that, of just like keeping it really simple, recording it very quickly, fighting any salty temptation to do too many overdubs or too many takes. Yeah, so just really trying to keep it simple and do it and move on to the next.
Yeah, this new crew, you obviously, you just mentioned it, you did it with a different crew than you did Lost at Last. And I love, the first time I saw Matt play, he was an auxiliary member of the Low Anthem for a while. Did you ever see him when he was in that band?
Yes.
And
yes.
it was, I just remember being like, wow, this amazing band somehow added the best musician that I've ever seen. It was like KD going to the Warriors or something like that at the time. I was like, what the hell, man? Yeah. And so it's been really cool to see him blossom with Twain. And I know you've been playing with him a lot. Can you kind of speak to your musical connection with him?
Yeah. So I'd known about Matt for a while, and then a couple members of the Spirit Family reunion crew I would run into them at various festivals, I guess one summer over the course of 2 summers. And anytime I would see these boys, they'd just be like, yo, we play with this dude Twain that you will love. And I'm like, I bet I will. If you're saying so, I bet I will. And I didn't even make a connection that I'd seen him play with some other people. It takes a lot for me to pull my head out of my butt sometimes to see what's actually going on out around me.
Totally.
And so they had given me a digital download, which I will admit to you, my friend, I've never used a digital download, and I'm sure it's very easy, but unless somebody was kind enough to give me like a CD, burned CD or something to put in the car when they sold CD players, or a record or something that I could play at home. So, point being, I never listened to this digital download. I think I had kept it in my pocket for a little while until it fell out. But then they were coming through Nashville. I don't remember how many years ago this was, and they were playing at this little bar that's no longer here. But anyway, my dear friend Joel Sadler and I, he happened to be in town. We went there to see the Twain experience, and as for so many that see him, my jaw hit the floor. And how do I want to say this when thinking of Matt? It's like what we're talking about with the source, whatever that is. There are few people that I have seen in my life that I feel like the sound that comes out of the instrument that they play, or the way they sing, that is just it seems just like a true extension of that source. I don't know. It just sounds to me, when that guy does his thing, it is the sound of his soul. Like it's for us all, and as close as we can achieve. For him, it's very moving, and he's a very, very special human being and musician. And so I saw him, and I couldn't understand how I had not already seen him.
Yeah.
I wanted to know who he was more. I wanted to be friends with him. And my friend Joel, we had been recording these videos at my house called Pink House Sessions, and we were doing a bunch of those and getting a bunch of friends and people we were fans of to come to the Pink House, my house, and do these videos. So we had asked Matt, and then I was already friends with Ken and his bandmates, if they wanted to stay the night. We were being creepy. You guys want to come over and see the house and maybe spend the night? And they did, and shoot a video. And I think they wound up staying for 3 days or 4 days. I can't remember, but it was really a sweet, sweet way to meet him. And I don't remember how things lead to the other things, but we just kept in touch and asked him to play on. He plays on Lost at Last Volume 1, Lost at Last Volume 2, which is not out, but will come out at some point.
Breaking news here on the Working Song.
And then, Yeah, that's right. Wait, what part was breaking news?
That Volume 2 is going to come out eventually.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, this is all fake news that I speak
Well,
as
of course. All news is.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. That's actually closer to the truth than I would like to think. But yeah, there is a lot of fake news. For another podcast.
When you're writing, do you think of the musicians that are going to be on the session? Do other players tend to inspire songs out of you, or is it just whoever's going to be there, the songs are going to be what they're going to be?
I've stayed with the same musical family for a long, long time, or they've stayed with me. So there's a lot of that. There were songs that I had written with the Lost Bayou Ramblers in mind, another band who I'm just a huge fan of, and they play a lot on the Volume 2, Lost Volume 2. So yeah, some people can inspire a song where I'm inspired by them and I happen to be around them. And so, who knows, maybe I try to copy them, but I'm not like good enough to play, Cajun music in the way that Cajuns do. So my interpretation probably doesn't sound anything like it, but I can, if they're my friends, sometimes they're willing to play on it with me. But with this one, I had wanted to do something really stripped down for a long time, and even set out to do that, and it just became a bigger or more of like a band thing than it was initially. Like the Last Volume 1 the idea was like a solo record,
right?
And then it became what it which I love that. I'm proud of that record, and
I love that record.
It becomes what it becomes. Thanks, man. But this one, because of how the songs kind of arrived, and then just because of COVID, it forced the songs to be really stripped down, and just thank goodness Matt, he was in Austin, Texas, and I sent him some just like voice memo, demo-y kind of stuff, and see if he'd be willing to come up. And then Paul DeFiglia, who I go way back with, and it really touches my heart that we've become so closer than we've ever been. And the first band that I ever had was with him and Malachi that we started in New York, and now he just lives up the road here in Nashville. So yeah, he built a little beautiful backyard studio, and yeah, man, we just kept it simple, and those boys definitely added, really helped to bring the songs to life in my view.
Well, man, it's a beautiful record. I'm so glad you had the time to come back on with us for the Working Songwriter and to talk to our audience. And I hope you're good, man. I look forward to seeing you sometime when things go back to normal.
I hope so too. It was great to talk to you. I thought we were just getting started. I think I talk a lot, Joe.
No, dude, this is what podcasts are for. Podcasts are for stretching out, man. So, yeah.
I want to try the next chance I get at one of these, like one of those Pootie Tang scenarios where a question is asked and then the answer, I just open my mouth but don't say anything. But then everybody understands what I'm talking about. But I've got to work on my Pootie Tang abilities.
We'll get that set up for next time. All right, brother. Well, be well, and I'm sure I'll see you soon.
I hope so, man. Thank you for doing this, and much love, brother.
Much
really
love.
Nice to talk with you.
Talk to you. Peace.
Talk to you, man. Peace.
This month's show is brought to you by Bandzoogle. Built by musicians and for musicians, Bandzoogle is an all-in-one platform to build a beautiful website for your music. Use promo code TWS, the initials of our podcast, TWS, to get 15% off the first year of any subscription. Langhorne Slim's latest album is entitled Strawberry Mansion, available everywhere music is sold or streamed. If before we meet again, you sit down to write, Please remember, an expensive drug habit is not a song, a compelling Instagram account is not a song, and most importantly, reverb is not a song. So let all that take care of itself, and for you, just keep your eye on the song.